What is up, Bat Family? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for clicking on today's video. Today, we've got a bit of a fun video talking about a few updates. So I am, as you know, this week playing catch up on San Diego Comic-Con, and we've got new looks at Riddler Year One, the prequel comic book series that will be getting into the Riddler's somewhat origin story, you could say, but also expanding the somewhat worldview out there at that period of time, even in that of the Batman. And we have got panels, actual panels to break down, so I can't wait to get into that. Plus, Paul Dano giving us a bunch of information. Also, an update on the Penguin show. Finally, we've got some clarity with that. And then just a little teeny bit of an update with a question asked Paul Dano about returning in a Batman sequel. So, hope you guys enjoy this little update today. When it comes to anything the Batman universe, even down to a comic book that is canonical, you know I'm going to be on top of it. I love learning more about the lore of all of this stuff, so I can't wait to dive into that aspect of this video, especially now that we've got actual panels that we can dissect, and there is a cool couple of Easter eggs in there. This video will be timestamped as usual. If you just want to skip past, I don't know, the Penguin update, or maybe some of the comments from Paul Dano and get straight into the panel breakdowns. Maybe you don't want to see my breakdown about the variant covers or whatever. I do recommend listening to the whole video, but the panel breakdown part will be quite towards the back end, so, you know, time chapters are there for your convenience. But first of all, I want to talk about the Penguin update. It's by far the most quick update to talk about today, and that is, if you didn't know already, if you've been living under a little iceberg lounge rock, so to speak, or a lump of ice, I don't freaking know, that we are getting an HBO Max Penguin show. Literally with Colin Farrell. I did estimate that it would be around 6 to 8 episodes long, and by the sounds of what Colin Farrell was saying, it kind of sounds true. So this is an interesting one, because not so long ago, quite a few of us were under the impression that it was filming this year, if not had actually already started filming, because it was listed by Production Weekly that it had already indeed begun filming. However, with this new interview with Colin Farrell, it won't start filming until at least February 2023. And I'm going to get into how that isn't also massively surprising or like a big deal, especially when you take into account, you know, how long it's also got to take to release the Batman sequel. Let's read out the quote, and if you haven't liked the video already, I would really appreciate it if you do so. I know people ask you to do this all the time. You may know that I ask you to do it all the time. I am guilty of not hitting that thumbs up button all the time, even when I hear the person say it, but maybe today is the day you'll hit that thumbs up button. If you do, thank you so much. But this is what Colin Farrell had to say when asked if he had started shooting yet. No, man, I think next year. There's something I'm going to do here in Los Angeles between now and Christmas, and then I think next February will start. But I read the first script. Just the first script of what I think will be 8 hours, 6 or 8 hours, and it was tasty. It was really, honest to God, it was so, the first script was so tasty. It was just kind of like, it's nice. And yeah, just seeing, I mean, I can't truly convey how he was like at the latter of that comment there, but he was just kind of very enthusiastic, very expressive when he was saying it was tasty. So we know the Penguin series will be getting into quite a mature tone of the universe. I don't think, despite that the Batman, unlike the UK actually, it was out there for a lot of audiences of all ages, the Penguin show on HBO Max will be getting into that criminal element, seizing for the power of the throne that was left behind from Falcone in the most mature way. It's not going to be pretty, and that is something I am extremely excited about. I know there's a lot of fans of Colin Farrell's Penguin still even saying, despite being a fan, it's like, I don't know about a Penguin show, but trust me on this one, I am very excited for it, because we're going to get onto the street level of things in Gotham, and granted we had glimpses at that in the Batman, we didn't exactly have a train station fight scene getting into the criminal element, to that of thugs, to that of larger, obviously, characters like gang leaders, mob boss leaders, potentially of that of Roman Sionis, or who knows else who could be coming into the battle for the throne, so to speak, because it won't just be Penguin trying to rule the criminal element, and natural progression and plot for Penguin's character will be to embrace that of the name of the Penguin, instead of viewing it as a derogatory term, as he currently does in the first movie. So yeah, you've heard it there from Colin Farrell. He's read the first script of what he think will be 8 hours or 6 to 8 hours. That makes sense to me. I've been referring to the series as that this whole time anyway. With a production and a show like this, the same of that of the Arkham series, by the way, that they're working on, a 6 to 8 hour, 8 episodes, 55 minutes to an hour is the most sensible way to go. It doesn't drag it out for too much. It's condensed enough so that there's not really any filler. It's just engaging drama and story. And as for 2023, that's fine. The sequel is quite a ways away. I get asked about this a lot. Obviously, we had Dylan Clark, the producer of The Batman, saying, you know, it will kind of be before 2025, and a lot of people kind of panicked with that. And, you know, I'm optimistic about 2024 fall-ish release, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, you know, akin to The Batman in the spring-ish, you know, early year of 2025. I'm hoping for 2024. Don't forget that we don't have the pandemic roaring and raging anymore. That really did halt the production of The Batman quite a lot, like a lot, and assuming that we don't have anything like that this time, they could have somewhat of a smooth sailing to that of 2024 for the Batman sequel, The Batman Chapter 2, but I don't want to put any major ideas in anyone's heads thinking that is a given, because at the end of the day, they are shooting a big-ass movie, and, you know, 2025 wouldn't be extremely surprising. So the reason why that links with this Penguin series, with that shooting in February 2023, you know, post-production on a 6 to 8 hour show, especially one that doesn't involve heavy CGI or anything like that, it should be ready to ship by the fall of 2023. I could be wrong about that. They could take longer. But, you know, the Penguin show, 6 to 8 episodes, sure, there's going to be CGI backdrops of Gotham here and there and whatnot, but it won't need as much as like a, I don't know, 18 to 22 episode network show of, you know, the amount of stuff they need to do on post-production. So I am expecting it to come out and maybe even be featured at Comic-Con next year if there's a DC fandom trailer and all of that for maybe an October, November release date. Who knows? Could get it sooner than that. I'll be very shocked if it was after that. But either way, this show is just meant to bridge the gap between The Batman and The Batman Chapter 2. Of course, that isn't its only purpose. It is to heavily lean into Oz Cobblepot, the Penguin. And that is just about everything to do with the Penguin show update. Let me know your thoughts on that. But now, let's segue our way into the breakdown of all of the new looks at the Riddler Year One comic, of which, if you didn't already know, Paul Dano is writing a 6-issue comic book prequel, and it's described as Dano's story provides an in-depth look at how the unknown forensic accountant Edward Nashton evolved into the menace known as the Riddler and came so close to bringing down the entire city. Working with acclaimed artist Stevan Subic, Dano showed off an incredible assortment of covers and interior art for the debut issue hitting comic book stores on October 25th. And everyone there as well got this little cool Riddler pin. I wish I had one of those. I'd be sporting it right now. But yeah, let's get into all of this. I will be covering it on the channel. I don't really cover comic books or new volumes coming out, so to speak, or issues of stuff on the channel. That might change in the future, by the way, but considering this is in the universe of something I cover quite frequently on the channel, you can bet your ass I will be getting into breakdowns panel by panel of every issue. So if you are a die-hard fan, know that I will be breaking down this story just as much as I am in this video. So just before we break down the panels and the covers and varying covers in detail, I want to take a look and a listen, so to speak, with what Paul Dano told Entertainment Weekly. So he said, as an actor, one of the main ways that I approach my work is how do I get to page 1 of the script? Meaning I do a lot of backstory work. And the hope is that you're bringing the life of the character with you somehow, and you're having the unconscious of the character at work as well when you are doing a scene. In this case with the Batman, I played Edward Nashton, the Riddler. A lot of the backstory I came up with was in the language of comics because I wanted to have that archetypal energy at work going towards the film. I like the way this even came to fruition and how passionate Paul Dano is about the Riddler, the world, to the point of where he's doing this. So he said that one night I was on set with Matt Reeves, our director, and I said, my backstory, I saw this image and this image and this image, and he said, that should be a comic, recalled Dano. I secretly had that in mind, that it could be. I don't know if I would have had the sand to go through with it, but the next day on set, Matt Reeves said, I spoke to DC, they want to talk to you. And I said, great. Frankly, it's turned into a whole other thing. It's taken on a life of its own, and I think it's really cool. Now, we do have some other parts to read out from Paul Dano, but first of all, I'm going to pop myself up in the corner, and here we have the covers. Before we get into the panels, we will get into the panels, of course, but I want to talk about these covers because they are incredible as well. And in this issue 1 cover, this one is also by Stevan Subic, in where we see a brilliant image of the Riddler's costume in the background, with at the very center there, you can see the Edward Nashton version of himself. And what I like with the subtle details in this issue cover is that you could just see some scribblings of the numbers all over the image, as we can't forget he is, of course, a forensic accountant, and that is, what led him to follow the numbers to the corruption and get his targets. So, even as I'm looking at this right now, I think this is really awesome, but we do also have quite a few variant covers as well. But this first variant cover is also from Stevan Subic, in where we get Edward in his apartment. And one thing, again, art is art, and, there are lots of ways to interpret this, and I feel like so many of these variant covers give us so much. Here we have Edward seemingly kind of rubbing his eyes after taking his glasses off, and I just feel like there's a lot going on. I love how the chair he's sitting on, the light just kind of hits it in such a way where it illuminates a little bit of a question mark there. Edward here seems like he's somewhat getting a bit run down. Obviously, as we know, this is a prequel comic, so he's going to go on a journey that clearly progresses him to the point of where he can't really not sit by and not do anything anymore. So I feel like here we're kind of witnessing a little bit of that demeanor slowly boiling away like a kettle, so to speak, and, his worldview growing of where it will get to that point of where he's at in the movie. Notice how we also see, the Week of the Year files doing various forensic accounting, one of the names for A New Beginnings, Animal Rescue, and various other receipts. And of course, the silhouette of Batman can be seen there in the background, depicting this kind of constant looming presence from the Dark Knight. And I feel like obviously this is kind of meant to symbolize how much Edward, as we know from the movie, admires what this vigilante is doing and actually inspires him to become the Riddler himself. And there is more on that in the panels we're going to get to as well. But the next variant cover is by Greg Ruth, in where we have the Riddler in a crowd of people. Now, I'm wondering if there's anything somewhat significant to these particular people that we're viewing from behind. Perhaps they are meant to be the people he views as who are a part of the corruption and what his numbers have led him to that of the Gotham Renewal Fund, or maybe they're his targets, because I do feel like one of these people from behind, such as to the right of the Riddler here, definitely looks like the haircut of that of Bruce Wayne. Now, we know that Bruce Wayne wasn't tapping into his own Gotham Renewal Fund, but he technically was a part of the corruption, at least in the Riddler's mind, as, the sins of the father and everything like that. So I definitely feel like that's the behind of Bruce Wayne, so you could argue that these other characters are other significant people to that of, the plot of the Riddler in not only the prequel, but the movie as well. The next variant cover is by Tula Lote. I hope I am not butchering these names. Maybe I am. I do apologize if I am. In where we can see the Riddler hiding behind a car, looking at the Batman. Now, this variant cover does indeed mimic some of the story in the panels that we're about to get into, and where the Riddler experiences the Batman himself in person. But this is a nice different perspective compared to that of the panels, that just made it into that of a really cool variant cover. And as intimidating as this must have been to Edward in this moment, because he's kind of like beholding whatever he is witnessing with the Batman, it must have just been so inspiring to him, as we know. And the last variant cover is by, I believe, Kyoto Sisei. I am probably pronouncing and butchering that wrong, and this one is incredible to me. Just in of itself as a piece of art. I believe even on her YouTube channel and Instagram, there's the process of actually painting this, so I'll leave that in the link down below for those interested. But obviously it's a picture of Edward Nashton, and I just think this picture in of itself shows so much about the person the Riddler is. In like a simple first glance, you just see a man, sure, to some people, but I see a man who doesn't come across so much in a villainous way. If anything, this man could have turned out to be a good person one day. But this story about Batman and Edward and other villains even is about trauma. You know, that's one thing that Matt Reeves hones in on, and how it sent them down their paths, albeit quite different ones. And he can just see this pain in Edward Nashton's face here. And it just reminds me of the whole quote of a picture paints 1,000 words. I feel like that really does apply to this one. I really dig this cover art, and I think it's my favorite one, just as a fan of this painting in of itself. And we have on her Instagram, actually, I've just pulled it up, Mr. Dano told me inside he's broken, a life of pain, but outside he's desperately wants to be seen, heard, felt, he needed in the city. So oh man, I feel like this picture literally personifies that. I like art, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like a connoisseur or anything, but this one just speaks to me in that of a fan of the Riddler. So I think this one is my favorite variant, and I hope I get all the variants somehow. Right, before we get into those comic book panels breaking down the story, or at least what we can from the story details that we get a preview of, as I said earlier, I wanted to take a little bit of a peek with more context from that of Paul Dano. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, this continues on by saying, after getting into the horrific mind of Nashton, Dano was inspired to dig even deeper into his trauma. What I felt like I had to offer to this medium was to give something that almost felt autobiographical for the character as a Batman comic, he said. I thought, can I bring some of that energy to this because I'm so in touch with this character? Can I bring something really psychological and emotional? On the surface, the plot is about corruption and there is a plot-driven element, but underneath it, it's an emotional horror story about trauma. And he said a similar thing to IGN with regards to how on the plot level it's about following the numbers towards corruption. So with that, as I mentioned quite often, I hope we do get some more light shed on the report that Edward Elliot was working on, that Thomas Elliot tried to pay hush money for. Like, that wasn't thoroughly explained, so hopefully we get some more things on that. But Dano said that he is still in process writing the series, which is set to launch in October, and called the experience of creating the comic book totally incredible. He says, I feel so lit up by it because I'm learning so much. To write something and have it be realized by a brilliant artist, it's amazing. It's really quite intense to play more with the character that I spent so much time cultivating in this world of Gotham that I loved so much. As a comic book kid, it was a dream. I've been working with this artist named Stevan Subic, who's from Serbia. He's not done a comic here yet. I'm so excited that I get to be the one to help share his voice because I think he's very good. I really love what he's doing, and we have a super intense collaboration. And this is why I wanted to include this detail, because I love how much of a passion he has for this. So we went on to say a little bit later, him and I have collaborated we Zoom 2 or 3 times a week, going back and forth about panel structure, story. You give me notes from my writing. Here's what I think about colors. I mean, we really have formed kind of a team, and it's been much more like making a film than I anticipated. I think some comic books have a tighter deadline and there's a little bit more of an assembly line thing, but like Stevan and I are just kind of like in this thing together. And yes, for them to give us keys with Black Label and say do what you want, it doesn't mean we're not going to do anything senseless, but it does empower us to kind of take this story where we want it to go. And I think we're both giving everything we have to it, and I'm very happy to have this support from DC. So as for the actual panels, let me blow these up. And this first one that you're seeing here, we get to see Edward Nashton in his apartment, and I like what they're going with here. Like, he's clearly winning something, and you can see the little kind of little glimmer he has in of himself, and you have some comments, and that reminds me of Discord. I don't know what it is. So some people are like, you effing rocked it, you know, fire, you should play. And then there's one guy saying, how come this dude always wins but never comments? So Edward enters all of these things, or does these things with regards to winning these puzzles. As you can clearly tell, there's some kind of puzzle there in the background of that chat chat room, but he doesn't really care about the credit right now. This is probably on the way to that forum where he got the followers. We'll see that unfold maybe with how he got the detonators and the donation that we heard about in the movie. This website, I believe, is called anonymous.com. You could see how he's just eating like beans out of a can. He's not really taking care of himself so much. And this is running up to the mayoral election. So clearly, as you can tell, even when the movie picks up, we didn't have any particular mayor elected. Villarreal or Mayor Mitchell, who was up for re-election. So this isn't like massively in the past. You see various people in Gotham protesting, saying, think for yourself, question everything, the truth. And you can see some police there just trying to keep back the crowd. And Mayor Mitchell for election there, taking the stand to say something. But on the news that Edward is browsing there, you can see that Vigilante Bat has been spotted. So this is maybe an inkling of the beginning of where his fascination starts to unfold. But this is one of my favorite panels that we get a preview of, because clearly, I don't know if you can see it right now, maybe you can, but there is quite a bit to take out of this image. So Edward is amongst a bit of a crowd in Gotham. I believe he might be waiting for a train because you can see some train tracks there in the background. And look who is there. None other than the Drifter. So this is Bruce, as we saw at the beginning of the movie. It makes sense as well. It lines up with how he was literally on a train as well, getting changed, I guess, in a whole separate carriage. And here we see him about to hop on another one. I can't guarantee that's Bruce, obviously, but I think that is an insanely obvious and an intentional Easter egg. Got the cap, got the hoodie, got the backpack. So unbeknownst to Riddler here, but the guy he fanboys over is right there. Now, I want to ask a question to you guys. What do you think that he's playing in his AirPods there, or whatever wireless Gotham earbuds he's got? Let me know your responses down below. Maybe it's I don't know, just constantly listening to that. We see Edward in the background of a various crowd as he's walking throughout the station, probably. We see a homeless man outside. We see people, I believe, maybe dealing drops. Now, this could be set around Christmas during Batman Year One, because, you know, it's Riddler Year One. And as we know, the beginning of the movie is like Thursday, October 31st, you know, so this could be the previous 10 months before that, December. I'm only saying that because we see these people dealing these potential drops here with Santa hats on. So it makes sense. It makes sense. Like, Batman's already around, as we went over, Vigilante spotted, even with some subtly different armor of which we're about to detail. But the movie just picks up 10 months after this, which is a perfect amount of time to see the Riddler in this comic go from the Riddler who is literally about to murder Mayor Mitchell. So I think that's fairly spot on there. I like how these beginning pages are showing some other various citizens as well, some seemingly higher up people, but also you can see Wayne Tower there in the background, and then the bottom part of that panel shows the reflection of the Wayne Tower of the W in Edward's glasses. Now, in the prequel novel to even that of what's articulated in the movie, Edward has plenty of opinions about Bruce Wayne the orphan. You know, so whether he knows it or now that Bruce will be a target, or he's going to learn that when he uncovers the corruption of, you know, the Waynes, if you will, you know, with Edward Elliot, the Hush Money, Falcone. It's just probably at this moment, if he hasn't got that far ahead, he's just looking at, oh, look, Bruce Wayne the orphan living in his mighty tower and everything that goes along with that. Now, this next panel is awesome. We can take quite a lot out of this as well. You can see that Batman has swept down and is saving this woman here from whoever he is tackling here. I believe there's a couple of people, because one person is getting a boot to the face. You can see that woman is kind of like ducking down like that. The other person is getting, you know, taken out by Batman from behind. Now, what's really cool about this is that the suit is very similar, but there are subtle differences. For example, that Batman here 10 months before the movie picks up, he's still got like the grapple hook darts on his forearms there, but he's got like these big beefy elbow pads. He actually doesn't have those in the movie. Another thing that is very transparent here is that his torso plate is a bit different as well. In the movie, the plates and the shapes are quite angular towards his sternum, if you will, but here it's more like a actual overall, you know, rectangle shape, you know, and then it's got little slices like that. So makes sense. Like, it's largely similar, but it's more of a Batman Year One suit. It's just not got all of the testing and everything that he's learned through the next 10 months into where we pick up with the movie and where it's actually got more angled shapes. He hasn't got the elbow pads anymore. I quite like that. The cowl is practically the same. Now, this is what I meant by that variant cover, giving us the different perspective of this moment, because this is where Edward is hiding behind a car. And clearly here is something to behold, obviously, so you're just kind of looking at the Batman. I like the way we see the reflection in the glasses and everything, but he's just looking up at him in wonder. So this will be quite a significant thing for Edward to witness. I'm sure in the future panels he'll go home after this and we're going to see some, commentary about him talking about Batman, how he feels like now he should be able to do something with the city, albeit quite different paths, as we know. And it definitely comes out in that interrogation room scene with how heartbroken Edward is once he finally speaks to this hero of his, really, here. But yeah, this is the beginning moments of that, seeing the Dark Knight during Batman Year One. And I'm telling you what, it would be so awesome if we get any inkling into this killer during Batman Year One, that this Bat vigilante is apprehended, because that killer would be Barry Keoghan's Joker. And, that would be amazing. But anyway, this is about Riddler. Now, lastly, for the preview of the panels, this is once again, and this could have actually been a continuation, if you will, from the first panel that we covered where, Edward was just kind of rubbing his eyes and taking his glasses off. Here, I think he's kind of at the end of his tether, so to speak. I don't know what's particularly, obviously, gotten him riled up, but he's gone away from his desk. He's starting to make some soup, clearly. You can see him heating it up on the pan. He puts it in there, and that's where he's just kind of putting his head down, and something causes some frustration in him, and he just kind of slaps down the heated up soup, and you can see that the soup is kind of covering his hands. It's a bit sizzled and burnt, so to speak, in the artwork, kind of showing that despite Edward could have been a nicer guy and everything like that in another world, he's clearly quite emotionally impulsive. He's getting pent up into a point of where whatever's going on here, I don't know if he's lost a game online and that pissed him off, or is something much more bigger than that. Maybe he stumbled on to how corrupt the Gotham City is. Maybe he's just learned, hey, the mayor, I've just got definitive proof, the district attorney as well, is accepting all of this stuff, and he just, loses it. I feel like there's something else going on than just a reveal like that. Something must have, genuinely irked him more so than just learning that knowledge in this moment for him to just kind of lose his composure and slap the soup. But yeah, can't wait to get into this a little bit more. And I think that's all for now I can draw out of these panels, but hopefully that's just a little teaser and taste of things to come when we get to covering the story on the channel and all of the things, the little extra bits and details we learn about Edward Nashton, the larger world of Gotham at the time of 10 months by what it seems like before when the movie picks up, because obviously the movie was in October, and this is around Christmas time, from judging from that panel of the exchange of the potential drops of the dealers wearing the Santa hats. So let me know your thoughts on all of that, guys. Are you interested in that? Are you as passionate about it as I am? I think it's absolutely fantastic. Paul Dano and Stevan Subic's kind of, work and collaboration here has really got me fired up. And I would just love to see what you guys have to say about it as well. And stay tuned to the channel for more updates like this. But lastly, I just wanted to chuck this in here. I thought it'd be a bit of a bonus comment for people to play with. So IGN mentioned how Paul Dano obviously shared a scene with the Riddler at the end of the Batman, and should he have any chance to revisit the character in a follow-up Batman movie, is there something he would want to explore between those characters now that they've met? And Paul Dano replies by saying, I mean, look, I've been spending this past year writing this comic because I loved so much our film, Gotham, Batman, all of it. So, if they call me, I'll probably show up, But I haven't really dared to dream about what we might explore. One, because it's out of my hands, but two, because I've been daydreaming about this comic now for the past year or so. But it'd be pretty fun to get in there with another good actor like Barry. So yeah, and there's nothing too significant about that, but obviously he's just like, yeah, I'd be pretty down for it. It'd be really fun to get in there with another actor like Barry Keoghan. And that could be, eventually where I'm losing my voice, things could potentially get with maybe the third film. That's always been an idea of fans. Clearly they were setting up some friendship, whether it is more manipulative from the Joker side or not, that they could have a little bit of a collaboration themselves and try and wreak havoc in terms of how Joker did say, after all, Gotham loves a comeback story. So that is everything I've got to talk about in today's The Batman Universe update, if you will. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you got to this point of the video, do let me know by leaving a like and a comment with regards to anything you want to say about any of these updates. If you're enjoying the content on the channel as well, I do recommend subscribing. We do cover a variety of things here. Yesterday, I uploaded my very in-depth trailer breakdown of Netflix's The Sandman. A lot of interesting stuff in that. If you want to stay up to date with me as well, do follow me on Twitter, join my Discord server, and check out my merch store. Links to that are in the description as well. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Bat family members in the next video. Goodbye.